You'll regret touching her. Marcus Hale's voice cut through the Aurelia bar like steel against glass, low, steady, unshakable. He hadn't raised it, but the entire lounge went still. Drinks hovered midair, jazz faltered, and Chase Donovan, son of a billionaire developer, froze with his hand still clamped on Elena Ruiz's wrist. For a split second, the golden glow of the chandeliers felt more like a spotlight, exposing every breath, every glance, every smirk that had evaporated into silence. Chase laughed anyway, hollow and too loud. Regret? She's lucky we're even talking to her. His entourage cackled, but it sounded nervous now, forced, because everyone watching knew this man in the black jacket wasn't bluffing. But to understand why the bar held its breath in that moment, we need to rewind just minutes earlier. It was 10:42 p.m. on the 30th floor of the Aurelia, the city's most coveted rooftop bar. The skyline glittered beyond glass walls, the marble floor gleamed under candlelight, and a jazz trio played a soft tune near the corner stage. Guests laughed, whispered, snapped photos until Chase Donovan made Elena Ruiz his target. He leaned against the bar, drink in hand, and sneered. This place is for real money, not broke girls like you. Elena, in a crimson dress, tried to sidestep, but Chase moved with her, his friends circling like sharks. Tyler muttered, "She's cute, but broke." Brent smirked, "This isn't the student bar downtown. This is Aurelia." Their voices weren't whispers, they wanted the whole room to hear, and someone did. Marcus Hale sat alone at the bar, 34 years old. Tall, broad, dark-skinned, dressed in a black tailored jacket over a white shirt with the collar open just enough to breathe. He looked like a man winding down after a long day, businesslike, calm. But the weight in his eyes said otherwise. He had seen this scene before. At 23. At 29. And now again. Same arrogance. Same laughter. Different faces. Different bar. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we're glad you're here. Now, back to Marcus. Elena tried once more to break free. Chase tightened his grip. Relax. One drink with us might even upgrade you from sparkling water. Laughter boomed, bouncing off marble and glass, louder than the jazz, sharper than the clinking crystal. And Marcus placed his glass down. The sound was soft, just crystal against stone, but it sliced through the noise. The bartender glanced up. A young couple whispered. A phone tilted to record. Marcus rose to his full height. The chandelier light framed his shoulders, casting Chase into shadow. Silence spread, thick and expectant. Then came those 6 words, the ones that cracked the night in two. You'll regret touching her. And though Chase laughed, everyone else in the room understood. The storm had just begun. Chase Donovan's laugh lingered, bouncing against the glass walls like it had authority. You're cute, man. Playing hero for a girl you don't even know. Sit down before you embarrass yourself. Tyler clapped his hands, trying to rally the room. Come on, he looks like he just walked out of a catalog. FBI, CIA, maybe James Bond. He exaggerated a British accent, and Brent howled with laughter. But Marcus Hale didn't move. He just straightened his jacket, his jaw cutting sharp under the chandelier light. His silence was heavier than their noise. Elena tried to pull free again, her voice low but steady. Let go of me. Chase smirked, tightening his grip. Why? He's not gonna do anything. Nobody here is. And that was the moment a shift happened. From the far end of the bar, the bartender, a young man named Adrian, lifted his phone higher. The tiny red recording light glowed. At one of the lounge tables, a couple whispered fiercely. The woman hissed, "This is disgusting." The man muttered, "Don't stop filming. People need to see this." Chase noticed the camera. His grin faltered, then hardened. He barked, "Turn that off. No one films in here without my permission." Adrian didn't lower his phone. His voice cracked but carried. "You don't own this place." Gasps rose. For the first time, the laughter wasn't unanimous. The crowd was splitting, some shrinking back, some leaning forward, waiting. Marcus finally spoke, each word like measured steel. She said, "Let go." Chase's jaw tightened. He released Elena, but only to shove her toward Marcus's chest. She stumbled, but caught herself, eyes blazing now, not with fear, but fury. "You think you can walk in here in that cheap jacket and—" Chase's words caught when Marcus reached into his inner pocket. A ripple went through the room. For a second, everyone thought the same thing. But Marcus only pulled out his phone, pressing a single button. He raised it just enough to speak. "Activate protocol." The reply came almost instantly, clear and sharp through a tiny earpiece only he wore. "Copy. Local units notified." 3 minutes out. Chase blinked, confused. Tyler scoffed. "What, you calling your mom?" Brent chuckled nervously, "Or his Uber." But their bravado rang thinner now, hollow at the edges. Marcus slid the phone back into his jacket and looked directly at Chase. "You just made this official." For the first time, Chase's smirk cracked. He turned to the crowd, forcing a laugh. "This guy's insane. He thinks he's what, police? Federal?" And then Marcus did something subtle, almost casual. He opened his jacket just enough for the light to catch the badge clipped inside. Gold. Real. Undeniable. The room inhaled at once. Someone near the back whispered, "Oh my God." Chase froze, then tried to recover. "That could be fake. I've seen people buy badges online." Elena stepped forward now, her voice shaking but strong. "Number, it's real, and you know it." Her words landed heavier than any slap. The room was no longer with Chase. It was with Marcus. Chase's voice pitched higher. "You're all being played. He's nobody." He turned to Marcus, desperate now. "You think that badge scares me? My dad knows half the judges in this city." Marcus tilted his head, calm as ever. "Then call him. Tell him his son is about to be charged with harassment, assault, and obstruction." The silence that followed was suffocating. Tyler shifted uncomfortably. Brent's laughter had dried up completely. Guests in designer suits leaned forward, phones angled, whispers rippling like fire through dry grass. Chase tried to laugh again, but it cracked mid-sound. He jabbed a finger at Marcus. "You don't belong here." And Marcus, without raising his voice, without even blinking, answered, "No, Chase, you don't." The words weren't loud. They didn't need to be. They landed like a gavel, and as the echo of them settled, the sound of sirens faintly pierced the city night below. The sirens grew louder outside, faint but undeniable, and Chase Donovan heard them. For the first time, real panic flickered across his face. But pride is a stubborn disease. He shoved it down, straightened his silk shirt, and barked at Marcus. "You think flashing a badge makes you untouchable? Do you know who my father is?" Marcus didn't blink. "Yes. And that's exactly why this will hurt more." Gasps rippled through the room. Tyler muttered under his breath, "Man, this isn't funny anymore." Brent shifted from foot to foot, his grin long gone, but Chase doubled down, desperate to save face. He lunged forward, jabbing a finger into Marcus's chest. "You're nothing. You don't belong in my world. This bar, this city, this league, it's ours." Marcus didn't move, didn't flinch. His stillness made Chase look smaller, weaker, childish. Elena stepped forward, voice steady now. "No, Chase. It's not yours. You don't own people. You don't own this place. And you definitely don't own me." Her words drew applause from a corner table. It started as a single clap, then another, until half the lounge was clapping, recording, standing against him. Chase's eyes darted wildly, searching for allies. He found none, and then he snapped. He grabbed Elena's arm again, rougher this time, yanking her back. "Shut up," he roared. The jazz stopped completely. The chandelier light seemed to harden, every crystal cutting the room like ice. That was his last mistake. Marcus moved in one fluid motion, not violent. Controlled. He stepped between them, peeled Chase's hand from Elena's arm, and pinned it against the marble bar with a single, precise grip. Chase yelped, shocked at the strength. The room exhaled at once. Bartender Adrian's camera caught everything: the panic in Chase's eyes, the composure in Marcus's. Marcus leaned in close, voice low, razor sharp. "You mistook silence for weakness. That's your last mistake tonight." Chase squirmed, but Marcus's hold was iron. He released only when Elena was safely behind him. And right then, the elevator doors opened. 2 uniformed officers stepped out, sirens now cutting off as if on cue. The timing was perfect. Marcus raised his voice just enough for the room to hear. "Officers, these 3 Donovan, Tyler, Brent, charges, harassment, assault, obstruction, take them." The entire lounge erupted not with chaos, but with vindication. Applause. Cheers. Phones flashing. Guests calling out. "About time." Chase tried one last protest, his voice breaking. "You can't do this. My father will bury you." Marcus fixed him with a calm, cold stare. "Your father's power doesn't reach here tonight. Mine does." And with that, Chase Donovan was pulled away, his silk shirt wrinkled, his arrogance in shreds. Elena exhaled, her eyes meeting Marcus's. Gratitude, relief, awe. She whispered, "Thank you." Marcus gave a small nod, adjusting his jacket like nothing had happened. "Don't thank me. Thank the truth. It always wins in the end." The applause swelled, echoing against glass and marble, rising above the city lights. The elevator door slid shut behind Chase Donovan, his friends trailing in handcuffs, their protests fading into silence. The Aurelia bar was left in stunned stillness, then erupted. Applause thundered through the lounge, raw and cathartic, as though the entire city had just witnessed justice in real time. Phones captured everything. Adrian, the bartender, lowered his camera at last, his hands trembling. He whispered to the couple near him, "It's all here, every second. He can't lie his way out of this." The woman nodded, her eyes shining. "People need to see men like him fall." Elena stood just behind Marcus, her breath still uneven, but her voice steady. "I thought no one would step in. You didn't even know me." Marcus turned slightly, his expression calm, his presence still radiating that unshakable authority. "I didn't need to know you. Wrong is wrong, that's enough." She blinked, caught between gratitude and disbelief. Few people in this city would challenge a Donovan, and fewer still would do it so publicly. Yet this man had. Without hesitation, the crowd pressed closer, voices rising in fragments. "Did you see that?" He never raised his voice. Silent, but powerful. Finally someone who doesn't bow. Marcus ignored the noise. He returned to his seat at the bar, lifted his glass of whiskey, and took a slow sip. The golden liquid caught the chandelier light, glowing like amber fire. For a moment, it seemed as if time had reset, as though he'd been here all along. Just another man enjoying his drink. But the room knew better. They had seen the truth. Adrian approached timidly, placing a fresh glass in front of him. "On the house, sir." That was incredible. Marcus gave him a nod, simple and understated. "Do your job well. That's all the applause a man needs." Elena, still rooted nearby, asked quietly, "Who are you?" He glanced at her, then at the sea of faces still staring, phones still recording. His voice was calm, even. "Someone who enforces the law, even when people think money is above it." The answer wasn't loud, but it carried. The entire bar heard. And they would remember. The couple from earlier stepped forward. The woman raised her phone. "We'll make sure everyone sees this. They can't bury it." Marcus set his glass down. His words, measured and final, cut through the noise. "Real power doesn't shout. It doesn't bully. It protects. Quietly, decisively." Silence followed, not empty, but reverent. Elena's eyes softened. "Then tonight, real power saved me." Marcus gave the faintest smile, a rare crack in his steel composure. He adjusted his jacket, leaving his whiskey half-finished. As he walked toward the elevator, the crowd parted like a tide, their applause rising once more. Not for a performance, not for a show, but for justice done in real time. When the doors closed behind him, the Aurelia bar buzzed with whispers, with awe, with truth ready to spread beyond those glass walls. Chase Donovan's name would carry shame now, not privilege. And Marcus Hale's name? It wouldn't be shouted. It didn't need to be, because the room already knew. He was the kind of man who could end a storm without raising his voice. When the elevator closed on Marcus Hale, the Aurelia bar felt altered. The chandeliers still glowed, the skyline still glittered, The jazz band still waited to resume, but nothing was the same. The guests who had watched in silence now found their voices. Conversations burst open like dammed rivers. Did you see the way he held himself? He never shouted, never flinched, just stood there. That's real authority. Money can't buy that. Bartender Adrian replayed the footage on his phone, the red glow of recording now a permanent mark. He whispered to himself, almost in awe. He knew exactly what to do, like he'd lived this scene 100 times. Elena sat down at the bar, her hands trembling as she lifted the glass Marcus had left unfinished. She didn't drink it, just traced the rim with her fingertip. To her, the glass felt like a relic, a reminder that dignity could be defended, even in a place dripping with arrogance. She murmured, almost to herself, "He didn't save me because of who I was. He saved me because it was right." Adrian overheard. He smiled faintly. That's the kind of man you don't forget. Across the room, the couple who had been recording posted the video. Within minutes, their phones buzzed, notifications lighting up. Strangers online were already watching, already sharing. The story was leaving Aurelia, spreading into the night like wildfire. Some guests debated in hushed tones. His badge was real, right? Even if it wasn't, his presence was real. That's what shook Donovan. No, it was real. And that's why Donovan's finished. The truth no longer belonged to Chase Donovan, nor his father's empire. It belonged to everyone who had seen, recorded, believed. And Elena, sitting quietly at the bar, realized something. She had walked in alone, cornered and mocked, but she was leaving with her dignity intact, not because she fought louder, but because someone else had shown her that silence, when backed by strength, could be louder than a scream. The Aurelia's doors opened again, new guests walking in, unaware of the storm that had just passed. They noticed only the murmurs, the buzz, the glances toward the elevator. They felt the shift in the air, even if they didn't yet know why. Adrian polished a glass, still shaking his head. He didn't just stop them, he said softly. He changed the room. And he was right, because even after Marcus Hale had gone, his presence lingered in the stories whispered, in the videos uploaded, in the silence he left behind. The storm was over, but the echo of power remained. The elevator hummed softly as it carried Marcus Hale down from the 30th floor. The golden glow of the Aurelia faded above him, replaced by the muted reflection of his own face in the mirrored walls. For the first time all night, he allowed himself a breath. His composure never cracked in public. But alone, even for a moment, the memories returned sharp, uninvited, impossible to erase. He saw himself at 23, fresh out of Quantico, walking into a bank in Atlanta to open his first account. The teller had smiled politely, then asked 3 times if he was sure this was the right bank. He remembered the way other customers looked at him, as though he had wandered into a place that wasn't meant for him. He saw himself at 29, standing in a dealership, pointing to a car he intended to buy in cash. The salesman had chuckled, tapped the hood, and said, "Maybe start with something smaller, champ." Marcus had walked out without a word, but 2 weeks later, returned in a suit, handing the keys to his secretary. The salesman never forgot his face. And now, tonight, same tone, same laughter, same disbelief that a black man could stand his ground without apology. It wasn't rage that fueled him. Rage burned too fast, too bright. What fueled him was memory. The accumulation of every slight, every smirk, every whispered, "You don't belong." Each one stacked, brick by brick, until his silence was heavier than their laughter. The elevator chimed. Ground floor. Marcus adjusted his jacket, his reflection staring back at him with calm resolve. He stepped out into the lobby, polished marble, doormen still standing stiff. None of them knew what had just unfolded above. None of them needed to. His phone buzzed once in his pocket. A message. Units secured, suspects. No resistance. Case file opening. Marcus typed a single word in reply. Good. As he walked out into the cool night air, the city stretched before him, lights, noise, ambition stacked sky high. He blended into it easily, just another man in a dark suit disappearing into the current. But he knew the truth. And soon, so would the world. Because the videos would spread. the story would spread. Not about his name. Not about the FBI. But about dignity. About the night silence defeated arrogance. And Marcus Hale carried that weight the way he always had, quietly, steadily, like a man who had been preparing his whole life for moments like this. By the time Marcus Hale stepped into the cool night, the story was already leaving the Aurelia bar without him. Upstairs, Adrian's video had been uploaded. Less than 15 minutes later, it was on 3 different platforms. 30 minutes after that, it was being shared across group chats, news feeds, and private messages like contraband truth. The footage was crisp. Chase Donovan laughing, yanking Elena's arm, sneering at Marcus. And then the moment everything shifted, Marcus rising, calm, silent, then flashing the badge that caught the chandelier light. The caption under the video read, "Rich kid thought money made him untouchable, then he met real power." Within an hour, the views surged past 50,000. Comments poured in like rain. "This is what strength looks like, calm, controlled." Finally, someone stood up to them. Notice how he never raised his voice? That's power. The Donovans aren't above the law anymore. Elena watched from her apartment, still shaken but upright, her phone vibrating non-stop with notifications. She hadn't planned to be part of a viral story, but as she replayed the video, she realized something. She was no longer the girl being humiliated in a bar. She was the girl standing in the background of justice. Across the city, the Donovan family scrambled. Chase's father, Richard Donovan, was woken past midnight with calls from board members. "Your son's face is all over the internet. This will ruin us if it's not handled. Pull him out of the spotlight now." But the video couldn't be buried. Not this time. Too many copies. Too many witnesses. Marcus, meanwhile, sat in the back of a black SUV moving quietly through the city. He scrolled once through the notifications on his own phone, then shut the screen. It wasn't about him. It was never about him. He had done his job, protected dignity, enforced law, reminded arrogance of its limits. The rest was noise, but the noise was loud. Cable news picked it up before dawn. A chyron ran across the bottom of the screen. Developer's son detained after viral confrontation with federal agent. Panelists debated what it meant. Was it a sign that even the wealthy could be held accountable? Or just one rare night where the system worked? And in quiet corners of the city, people who had been silenced before, bartenders, waiters, clerks, shared the clip and whispered, "That could have been me." The storm was no longer confined to a rooftop bar. It was spilling into boardrooms, newsrooms, living rooms, and Marcus Hale, walking calmly through the current, knew this truth. He hadn't chased the spotlight. But sometimes, justice carried its own light. Richard Donovan stared at the screen in disbelief. It was 5:30 a.m. The Donovan penthouse glowed with polished marble and priceless art, but all of it felt small against the flicker of the news broadcast. Chase's face filled the television, frozen mid-laugh, sneering at a woman, then flinching as a federal badge caught the light. The chyron was merciless. Donovan heir detained. After harassment allegations, viral video sparks outrage. Richard's phone buzzed non-stop on the desk beside him. Missed calls from partners in Hong Kong, emails from investors in Zurich, texts from lawyers in D.C. Each one said the same thing without saying it. "Control the damage, or we walk." His wife, Julia, stood at the doorway, pale. "Richard, it's everywhere. It's on every feed. They're calling him entitled, dangerous." Richard's jaw clenched. For decades, he had built the Donovan name into a fortress of wealth, influence, and immunity. He had judges on his holiday card list, senators on his payroll. For years, Chase could stumble through life, and the world would bend to cushion his fall. But this was different, because this time, the world had seen, and the man who had confronted his son wasn't just anyone. He was federal, real power, the kind that couldn't be bought off with a weekend golf trip. Richard replayed the clip, searching for weakness. He studied Marcus Hale's face as he spoke, the line now echoing across the internet. "You mistook silence for weakness. That's your last mistake tonight." There was no weakness, only certainty. Julia whispered, "What are we going to do?" Richard didn't answer immediately. He stared at his son's image, shackled pride, dragged out of Aurelia under the weight of sirens and applause. His voice, when it came, was low, almost bitter. We've spent years teaching him the rules of money, but we never taught him respect. Silence filled the room. For once, Richard Donovan, master of deals and dynasty, had no immediate strategy. No check to write, no call to make, because money could silence courts. It could bend contracts. But it couldn't erase the truth replaying millions of times across phones and screens. And Richard knew something he would never admit out loud. The real threat wasn't the arrest, it was the badge. The calm voice. The living proof that there were men out there who couldn't be bought. Men like Marcus Hale. By sunrise, the Aurelia incident wasn't just gossip, it was a storm. The clip had crossed oceans overnight. Screens in cafes, offices, subway stations, and airport lounges replayed the same 30-second arc. Chase Donovan mocking, grabbing, sneering, and Marcus Hale stepping in with unshakable calm. The badge glint, the line, "You mistook silence for weakness. That's your last mistake tonight." The crowd's eruption, the arrest, it was all there, in a loop that refused to fade. Morning shows lit up. On City Forum Live, the panel tore into it. This, declared Dr. Lin, a cultural analyst, isn't about one spoiled heir. It's about the myth of immunity. For too long, men like the Donovans believed wealth insulated them. But this shows immunity can shatter when truth is undeniable. A retired prosecutor leaned forward. What stood out to me wasn't the badge, it was the restraint. Marcus Hale never escalated. He never shouted. He let the evidence build itself. That's textbook law enforcement. That's power that doesn't need to posture. But across from him, a corporate lobbyist bristled. Careful, we don't yet know the full context. Viral moments can distort reality. And let's be clear, the Donovans still control massive developments in this city. Collapsing their influence could destabilize more than you think. The anchor cut in sharply. Destabilize who? Those who believed they were untouchable? Or the citizens who've waited decades for accountability? The footage replayed again on the split screen. Marcus framed in light. Chase shrinking in shadow. On social media, the flood was unstoppable. Notice how he doesn't flinch. That's control. He never raised his voice. He didn't need to. Privilege collapsed in 30 seconds flat. Protect this man at all costs. Hashtag spiraled. Number real power. Number silence is strength. Number Aurelia incident. Memes appeared by mid-morning. Marcus standing calm with the caption, "When respect walks in, arrogance leaves." Elena watched from her small apartment, hands wrapped around a coffee cup she hadn't sipped. She replayed the video over and over, not to relive her own humiliation, but to witness the shift. She wasn't the girl cornered anymore. She was the woman standing behind a storm that broke open arrogance. Her phone buzzed with messages. Friends, strangers, journalists. Some asked if she was okay. Others asked if she would speak. She typed nothing, because she knew the story wasn't hers to tell anymore. It was everyone's. Elsewhere, the Donovan empire scrambled. Richard Donovan was awake before dawn, calls pouring in from board members, lobbyists, even politicians. Your son's image is everywhere. This threatens us all if not controlled. Shut it down. But Richard knew this couldn't be buried. Not this time. Too many cameras. Too many copies. Too much truth. Even schools joined the conversation. In one high school civics class, a teacher paused the video mid-frame, pointing at Marcus's posture. Look here, authority doesn't always shout. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is stand unshakable. Students scribbled notes, others whispered. That's real strength. In diners, factory break rooms, college dorms, the story spread like folklore. Ordinary people who had been silenced before whispered to each other, "That could have been me." But backlash rose too. On talk radio, one host scoffed. Another overblown social media trial. We don't know what happened before the cameras rolled. Maybe Donovan was provoked. Callers phoned in, some defending the Donovans, others spitting fury at the suggestion. The division didn't weaken the storm, it fueled it. By noon, national news anchors framed it as privilege meets accountability. International outlets picked it up, headline translations echoing the same theme. Wealth cornered by dignity, and through it all, Marcus Hale said nothing. No interviews. No posts. No statements. His silence became the loudest voice in the debate. In one newsroom, a young producer whispered to her colleague, "That's what chills me." He never asked for credit, he just walked away. And in countless homes, people repeated his words like a mantra. "You mistook silence for weakness. That's your last mistake tonight." It wasn't just a warning anymore. It was a creed. The Aurelia incident had left its rooftop glass cage. Now it belonged to the world. The next morning, while the city still buzzed with hashtags and headlines, Marcus Hale walked through the glass doors of the bureau like any other day. No fanfare, no entourage. Just the steady rhythm of his polished shoes against the marble floor. Inside, the bullpen was electric. Screens glowed with headlines. Agents clustered around desks, voices low but urgent. "Did you see it? That was him, right? Hale at the Aurelia? No mistaking it. The badge flash. The line. It's everywhere." When Marcus stepped into the room, the conversations faltered. Not silent, just hushed, like a tide pulling back before a wave. Eyes followed him, not with ridicule, not even with awe, but with the recognition that the quietest man in the building had just become the loudest name in the city. A younger agent, Daniels, couldn't contain himself. He rose from his desk. "Sir, that was incredible. The way you handled Donovan, the way you—" Marcus cut him off with a glance. Not harsh. Just final. Daniels sat back down, chastened, but smiling to himself. From the far side of the floor, Assistant Director Monroe stepped out of her office, crisp suit, silver hair sharp under fluorescent light. She approached slowly, her voice measured. "Agent Hale." Marcus nodded once. "Director." She studied him for a moment, then spoke softly enough for only him to hear. "You know your face is everywhere. You've become something of a symbol." Marcus's tone was steady. "Symbols fade. Work remains." A hint of a smile touched her lips. She respected that. She always had. "Still, you should know the brass in DC are watching. Some admire, some worry. Either way, you're on the map now." Marcus didn't respond. He adjusted the file in his hand and asked, "What's next assignment?" Monroe exhaled through her nose, both frustrated and impressed. "Briefing in 10, conference room 3. As she walked away, Daniels whispered to another agent, "He doesn't care about the spotlight, does he?" The reply came quietly, almost reverently. "Number. That's why it follows him." Marcus sat at his desk, opened the file, and began reading as though the city outside wasn't still burning with his name. To him, the Aurelia incident wasn't a story. It was just another night where dignity had to be defended. He didn't linger on it. He didn't replay it. Because tomorrow would bring another test, another moment where silence would have to stand against arrogance. And Marcus Hale was already ready. The conference room was colder than the bullpen. Fluorescent lights hummed. A projector flickered against the wall, displaying maps of the city, names, accounts, connections. Assistant Director Monroe stood at the head of the table, her gaze sweeping across the agents assembled. But when her eyes landed on Marcus Hale, she lingered. Just a second longer than necessary. "This isn't about a viral clip," she began. "This is about what the Aurelia incident revealed. Chase Donovan wasn't just a spoiled heir harassing women in bars. He was careless, reckless enough to expose something bigger." She tapped the remote. The screen shifted. Shell companies, offshore accounts, real estate developments traced in red lines. At the center, the Donovan name. Richard Donovan has been laundering funds through his development projects. Construction sites, luxury properties, overseas transfers. Millions unaccounted for. The Bureau has suspected for years, but evidence was thin. The next slide clicked. A still frame from the Aurelia video. Chase's face frozen in arrogance. Marcus in the background, calm as stone. Monroe's voice sharpened. "Now the Donovans are vulnerable. The son's humiliation has cracked the shield the father built. Investors are rattled. Political allies are keeping distance. This is our opening." Murmurs rippled through the room. Another agent asked. So the Aurelia incident wasn't just public embarrassment, it destabilized their network. Exactly, Monroe replied. Public trust erodes privilege. And privilege eroded is the first domino. Marcus said nothing. He simply flipped a page in the dossier placed before him. Bank accounts. Fake contractors. Meetings disguised as charity galas. Monroe's tone lowered. This assignment is delicate. We're not just chasing fraud. We're touching the foundations of this city's power. Developers, judges, senators, they all have stakes. She paused, then, which is why I want Hale on point. All eyes turned to him. Marcus closed the file softly. His voice was quiet, but carried. Then we do it clean. No shortcuts. No noise. We let their own arrogance undo them. The room fell silent. Even in a place built on discipline, his composure carried weight. Monroe gave a curt nod. You'll have a small team. Discretion is everything. We start with financials, then target the construction firms. If Donovan's empire is rotten, we pull the thread until the whole fabric unravels. After the briefing, agents filed out in hushed clusters. Some were nervous, others exhilarated. One whispered, taking on Donovan is career suicide. Another muttered, unless you're Hale, then it's destiny. Marcus remained seated a moment longer, staring at the map still glowing on the wall. Red lines. Power structures. The invisible scaffolding of arrogance. He thought of the Aurelia lounge, the laughter, the smirks. The moment silence broke louder than privilege, that was just a prelude. He adjusted his jacket, rose, and walked out without a word. Because Marcus Hale knew this truth. The bar was only the beginning, and now, the real game was waiting. The city looked different at dawn. From the rooftop of a federal building, Marcus Hale stood in silence, hands resting on the cold steel railing. Below, the streets pulsed with early traffic buses, cabs, the hum of a city pretending to be calm. Above, the skyline glowed gold, skyscrapers catching the first light of morning, but Marcus didn't watch the sunrise. He watched the city itself, the arteries of power, the veins of ambition, the towers built on money that never saw the dirt it came from. Somewhere inside those towers, Richard Donovan was scrambling, calling lawyers, summoning allies. Somewhere else, Chase Donovan was learning, maybe for the first time, what consequence felt like. And everywhere, the people had already chosen sides. Marcus lit no cigarette. He carried no coffee. He simply breathed, calm and deliberate. The Aurelia incident was still echoing across feeds, across newsrooms, across whispered conversations in places wealth had never cared to look. But for him, it was already filed away one night, one truth exposed. Behind him, the rooftop door opened. Assistant Director Monroe stepped out, her coat wrapped tight against the chill. She approached, heels clicking softly against the concrete. You don't like applause, do you? She asked. Marcus didn't look at her. Applause is noise. Noise fades. She studied him. You realize what you've become. People are quoting you like scripture. Silence mistaken for weakness. It's everywhere. Finally, he turned his head slightly. His voice was calm, almost detached. It's not mine anymore. It belongs to the people who needed to hear it. Monroe nodded slowly, understanding. She'd seen plenty of men chase credit, chase spotlight. But Marcus Hale? He carried it like a burden, not a crown. After a moment, she spoke again. You're leading the Donovan investigation. It won't be easy. They'll come after you. Not just with money but with influence, reputation, politics. They'll try to break you. Marcus's gaze stayed fixed on the skyline. Let them. Why? She pressed. His answer came measured, steady. Because every empire built on arrogance eventually forgets what holds it up. When the foundation cracks, the whole structure falls. My job isn't to push. It's to stand still and let gravity finish the work. Monroe exhaled, a mix of disbelief and admiration. Then she left him alone, the door closing softly behind her. The city stretched before him, wide and restless. Marcus remembered the bar, the chandelier light, Elena's trembling voice, Chase's sneer. He remembered the applause that erupted when silence proved stronger than arrogance. And he remembered the eyes of strangers that night. Eyes that finally believed someone could stand against privilege without bowing. That was why he fought. Not for applause. Not for fame. But for those eyes. For the people who whispered. That could have been me. The wind caught his jacket. The sun lifted higher, bathing the city in light. If the Donovans were the next battle, so be it. If others followed, so be it. He was ready. Always ready, because Marcus Hale lived by a truth the city had finally heard. Real power doesn't shout. Real power protects. Quietly, decisively, and as long as arrogance mistook silence for weakness, there would always be men like him watching, waiting, ready to remind them of their last mistake. The city roared awake beneath him, unaware that its greatest battles were still coming. Marcus Hale stepped back from the railing, adjusted his suit, and walked toward the door without looking back. No victory pose. No farewell. Just the calm, relentless stride of a man who didn't need the world to know his name, only to feel his presence when it mattered most. And when the door closed, the rooftop stood empty, but the truth remained, carried on the wind like a vow. Silence is not weakness. It is strength. It is justice. And it will always return.